Hi, I'm Snez, personal trainer, healthy lifestyle coach, and your guide to feeling your best. This podcast is a segment from my weekly radio show, Wellbeing Wednesdays, broadcast live on 88.6 Plenty Valley FM. It's all about sharing real, practical tips to help you move more, eat better, and live healthier without the overwhelm. Let's dive in, shall we? Coming up next, I wanted to talk to you about something that always comes up, and that's nuts and weight gain. So every time I encourage someone to add a handful of nuts to their day, maybe as a snack or in a salad, the first thing I get is, but won't that add more fat in? Won't it be too many calories in the day? And I totally get it. I remember when I was in my early 20s reading an article or something that said a single macadamia nut had the same amount of calories as a cheeseburger. Now, I never fact found this and checked in on that. However, I just remember thinking about it. It's like, wow, that's one nut, the equivalent calories to a cheeseburger. But even back then, it just didn't sit right with me. I thought, well, sure, nuts have fat, but I always felt that they were a good choice. And I thought, well, I would never in a million years go and swap the macadamias that I was eating and eat burgers instead. Like, that never really made sense either. But one thing that I did sort of think about is they're nutrient dense, they're satisfying, they're natural. And personally, I've always included lots of nuts and seeds in my diet. But even back then, like, I didn't eat a whole, huge amounts of them, but I've never once felt the need to calorie count nuts. And now the research is catching up to support that instinct that I had. And that is that there was some interesting science that came up with a review that took people who ate about 300 calories of nuts per day, so roughly a small handful or two, and it tracked their body weight, their waist size, their body fat and more over a period of time. And what was interesting was even when people added those extra calories in without cutting anything else out, they didn't gain any weight. And even when they weren't told to substitute anything, in fact, some of them actually even lost a little bit of body fat. So how is that possible? How is it that when we are consuming nuts, and someone such as me, I'm quite lean, how do I consume quite a decent amount of nuts and seeds in my day? And where do all those calories go, pretty much? And what's interesting is that there's a couple of things that are actually happening in that conversation. And one of them is that nuts help you feel fuller for longer. So they are higher in fiber and protein as well as the healthy fats. And that combination tells your brain, I'm satisfied. It's that fat, fiber, protein combination that is really satiating to our body. So that means if you have a small handful of nuts mid-morning, you're less likely to snack again until dinner time until your lunch meal. So what it does is it just cuts off some snacking, and especially I like to have nuts in the afternoon at that sort of 2 to 4 o'clock time. We're all craving a little bit of something. Our energies slump, and I will tend to have them there, and then I just feel fine until dinner time. And it sort of counteracts overeating at dinner time or a need to snack later on after dinner as well. So the calories from nuts naturally replace other calories that you would have eaten later on in the day. So it kind of all balances out. But what is really interesting is that our bodies don't absorb all the calories from nuts. And nuts have a natural structure and fiber that actually makes them harder to break down completely. So some of that fat and calories literally passes through your system without actually being absorbed. And this is especially true with whole or raw nuts. Your body misses out on some of those calories in a good way. It's almost like it kind of takes what it needs. And that's what's so magnificent about natural sources of food and whole foods, is that our body will tend to take what it needs. We feel more satiated rather than when we're comparing that to, say, processed food, which is designed with additives and flavors and certain combinations of fat and sugar that are usually poor sources of fat and sugar that combine together to enable the body to actually feel more hungry. So natural, wholesome foods allow you to feel fuller for longer, to feel satisfied, but they will only take what they need. Whereas heavily processed foods, the body, it plays a bit of a trick on the body's systems, and it then lands in you feeling like you want to eat more of these foods and tend to overconsume. And so I thought that was really interesting. But also they boost your metabolism just slightly. So digesting real food and foods that are high in fiber takes energy, and it's called diet-induced thermogenesis. And nuts being whole and unprocessed, they require more energy to digest them than something like, say, chips or biscuits or chocolate. And so even though you're eating the calories, you're also burning a little bit more in the digestion of these calories. And your body also adjusts naturally. So without even trying, most people will subconsciously eat a little bit less elsewhere when they've had a satisfying snack like nuts. So you don't even need to calorie count or track things, just your body doing what it's designed to do. And I think that's kind of where we all want to lean towards, is just paying attention to the way that our bodies respond to food and giving our bodies wholesome foods. And nuts are high also in unsaturated fats, which like in almonds, cashews and macadamias, and these are all liquid at room temperature. Unlike saturated fats, which are solid, and the animal-based fats, they're less likely, our unsaturated fats that come from nuts are less likely to be stored as fat, especially when they're eaten in moderation and as part of a whole food diet. They support our heart health, they lower inflammation, and they can help regulate your insulin levels, which is really important if you're trying to manage your weight or your hormones. So the big question is, should you eat nuts? Absolutely yes, unless you're allergic to them or there's some dietary restrictions that you cannot have nuts. They're nutrient dense, they're great for your heart, they're easy to grab and go, and they're full of good fats, fiber and protein. And I absolutely love the taste of them. Like, I absolutely enjoy them all the time. So how do we include them wisely though? Because they are, again, they are high in fats, and they also can be quite moreish. I find that when you are consuming raw nuts, it's easier to eat less. Whereas, give yourself some good toasted cashew salted nuts, and they are a lot harder to stop at a small handful. So first thing is make sure you're choosing raw or dry roasted over salted, or, now you can get honey coated versions and all sorts of things. So just try to eat them as raw as possible. Stick to a small handful a day, and that's your small handful. Is going to be very specific to how much you need, and the size of your hand is a good indicator. But also eat them alongside of something else. So I rarely will have just almonds on their own. So I will normally have them with a piece of fruit. So I might just have my mandarin now, because that's what's in season, with my handful of almonds, or I might have some celery sticks with some peanut butter, or I might have some yogurt sprinkled with some walnuts, or I might have them in a side salad or something like that. So there's lots of ways that you can enjoy them, but I'd always pair it with either some fruit or veg, or even just some veggie sticks. That's what I've got today, is just a handful of walnuts I've got today, plus some chopped up celery and carrot sticks as well. So no, nuts are not they're not going to completely not contribute an increase in fat and calories into your diet. Of course they are going to, but you still can enjoy them. They definitely don't respond in the same way as processed foods that have a similar calorie or fat profile as what nuts would. So you can't kind of compare like for like when we're talking about heavily processed foods, comparing them to nuts, because the way that your body deals with them is very, very, very different. So eat mindfully. They're one of the most supportive and satisfying nutrient-rich foods that you can actually include in your diet. And I've been eating nuts for absolute years, and it's really great to hear now that they are not only nourishing for us, but we only will absorb the nutrients and the calories and the fat out of them that we need. So when you can't, I guess the take-home message is include healthy amounts of nuts into your diet, and don't be too concerned if they are swaying the fat and calorie numbers on your day-to-day intake too much, if you are even counting and tracking your food, which that's one of the things that if you have learned a little bit from me or listen to some of my content, you will see that I am quite anti-calorie counting and very much about knowing what a healthy meal should compose of and getting a wide variety of foods, but very most importantly, just listening to your hunger and stopping when you have had enough, taking your time to enjoy wholesome foods is definitely the way to go. So next time you are concerned about eliminating nuts out of your diet, maybe just put in a handful of nuts and see the impact that it has on the rest of your day and on your intake. Thanks for joining me on this segment from Wellbeing Wednesdays, as heard live on 88.6 Plenty Valley FM. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who might find it helpful and subscribe so you never miss a show. Want to catch the live broadcast? Well, you can tune in Wednesdays from 12 till 2 p.m. on 88.6 Plenty Valley FM, or find my info on Wellbeing Wednesdays with Snez, the Facebook group. Take care, stay healthy, and remember, it's the little choices every day that create big changes. Talk soon.